I find that very hard. Yeah.
Well, good morning, all. It is, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, it's 9 o'clock. We'll bring the meeting to order. I trust everybody had a good day yesterday, Army Day. March 4th, Army Day. I had a shop teacher in high school that every March 4th, he'd wear his Army helmet. Anyway, moving right along. Mr. Shipston, Councillor Shipston,
Yep.
will you do the land acknowledgement, please?
Certainly. As we gather, we recognize and acknowledge the traditional keepers of this land with whom we share today. The Township of Southgate is part of the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Six Nations of the Grand River, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the Haudenosaunee, and Saugeen Métis. The land that surrounds us is part of who we are, as it reflects our histories, and may we live in peace and friendship with all its diverse people.
Excellent. Thank you, Martin. Madam Clerk, is there anyone registered for open forum?
None today, Mayor Milne.
Thank you. Can I have confirmation of the agenda? Someone care to move that, please? Martin and Jason? Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest related to any item on today's agenda? Okay, not seeing any. Oh, Monica, see your hand. Did you have an interest to declare?
No, just giving a thumbs up. for the
Okay,
agenda.
thank you. All right, thank you. So of course, if one should arise during the course of the meeting, you can declare at any time. Well, I guess she'll sort that out. No delegations or presentations this morning. Adoption of the minutes of the February 19th open and closed portions of that meeting. Someone care to move that? Jim, seconded by Martin. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor? That is carried. We do have a closed meeting today, and we're going to do that early, well, right now, actually. So be it resolved that council proceed into closed session at 9:02 in order to address 3 matters relating to litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, specifically litigation update and labor relations or employee negotiations, and personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, specifically an HR update, and that all those required remain in attendance. Someone care to move that? Jim, thank you. Seconded by Jason. Question?
I failed to declare. I believe that there is one of these items on here I would declare a conflict of interest in, but I can't tell from which one it is from this point in order to declare which item it is.
Well, I guess we can.
So I will wait to be called in.
Okay. Or move out one of the other.
Yes, it's an item in closed session as the property has a nexus with my property.
Okay, very good. Where are we at? Oh, all those in favor? That is carried. Okay, we'll proceed into closed session now.
No, because wait.
Okay, we're back in open session and I can confirm that we only discussed those matters listed on the closed meeting agenda. So moving on with our council meeting, reports of municipal officers. The first is Building and Bylaw Services. The report there is regarding enforcement policies. Someone care to move that we receive that, please? And the recommendations. Martin, second by Jim. Thank you. Ken or Hannah? Please, Ken.
Thank you and good morning, council. Before you is basically a report where we're seeking some direction related to some enforcement policies. Normally, these policies, the actions that are taken by our staff utilize their discretion, it falls as CBO and then our bylaw enforcement officer, but there's occasionally some moments where we want to seek some clarity from council just to sort of establish a protocol for certain matters. So Hannah, our bylaw enforcement officer, is here and she will walk you through the report.
Okay, welcome, Hannah. I think it's working.
Good morning, everybody. Okay. So I'm the bylaw enforcement officer with the Township of Southgate, and the report is as Ken Mellison said regarding policies. So the first one, which is cost recovery. At this point, we have been advised from one of the prosecutors that costs for the court cannot be requested at the resolution of a case or at a trial, depending where the case goes. So the only way to get cost recovery is to create a policy bylaw through the township, which provides direction that staff can request this as part of the final resolution or at the final trial for the case. And this would also be at the discretion of the township. So we wouldn't have to request cost recovery, but the option would be there with a policy through the township that we could. And there are obviously other factors which affect that decision. If we're asking for a high fine, essentially as part of the penalty, then the justice can obviously look at that and say, well, you've requested a significant fine, therefore we're not going to give you all of the cost recovery if we had a policy in place. So that is the cost recovery, and that is under the Municipal Act. So there is means through the Municipal Act that allows townships to do that, to try and get cost recovery. The next one for the barking dogs and the fireworks. This can be a tricky one, and it's not just the Township of Southgate who have concerns with barking dogs and noise. A lot of the time when an officer gets there, the noise has already finished and we just can't get the evidence. So municipalities and townships have started to take the approach with essentially a noise log. So the onus goes back on the complainant to provide the township with the evidence before the enforcement officer proceeds with fines, charges, because we need the evidence to back up that fine or a charge. Even a part one, which is a ticket essentially for canine control, for example, with barking, I can't give that fine unless I have the evidence the dog is actually creating a nuisance with barking, for example. So a couple of places that do have it in place already. The City of Toronto has it, and the town of Collingwood, they have it as well, but it is at officer discretion. So it isn't policy with the town of Collingwood. It's up to the officer if they feel it's necessary for their case to get a barking log or a noise log created. And then the last one is for repeat complaints. This one can significantly essentially drain resources. So repeat complaint is where a complainant essentially continues to submit the same complaint for the same thing continuously. This would be if it was an unfounded complaint. So we keep getting the same complaint, we keep going out, there's no violations, and it's becoming clear, one of the better word, that it is starting to turn into a vexatious situation between two people. So what we are looking at is direction, essentially saying that if we get situations like that at the CBO's discretion, we don't go out to those complaints, which are unfounded. Obviously, some of them, like property standards, it's not uncommon. You get a complaint for, say, a property which is a disaster, so it's full of junk, rubbish, things like that. They correct the issue, but then a month down the track, the same thing happens. So in that situation, that wouldn't be considered a repeat complaint that's unfounded. It's just, unfortunately, it keeps occurring. So that's a summary of the report. I'm happy to take questions to further clarify anything.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. So essentially what you're asking for is permission to develop a policy for each of these three items.
Correct.
Very good. Questions, Barb, please.
Thank you, and through you, and thank you, Hannah, for clarifying a few things in advance. You touched, so I'm just going to go through the first part, the cost recovery. What I just realized, I believe what I just realized is that while the court still awards the cost, they can't do that unless we have a policy to seek cost.
That is correct. So at this point, we have got two different responses from two different prosecutors, which basically the two responses have contradicted themselves. One prosecutor has told us one thing, one prosecutor has told us another thing. And what we understand is, yes, unless it's in policy, according to one of the prosecutors, we can't ask for cost recovery in court when it comes to the final resolution trial. It's not an option. We can't do that unless it's actually in policy. The only costs that the court can impose on the defendant is fines, direction that we can essentially go into a property and clean it up in the case of property standards, and then that cost is put back onto the tax roll. And the other one that they can also do without having to have any legislation in process with the township is costs for the court. But that is for the functioning of the court itself, and it's called court costs, but that does not include our own legal fees that we have incurred as a township. That's not included.
So would we be, as a result of getting these policies in place, would we get a actual legal opinion as opposed to, I mean, and okay, get a third opinion and see which one they agree with without telling them? Because in the past, we have sought costs, but maybe not for that particular purpose. So things change in the courts. We need to learn, if we need a policy that says we may seek costs at our discretion, then that gives us the leeway to request costs. So at that part now I understand.
Yes,
Thanks.
that is correct.
Okay, and to your point about property standards, having lived through this in another city, is once they make an effort to clean up the property standard issue, the file then is closed and it becomes a new complaint if they start collecting all their junk cars again.
Valuables.
Yes, yes. One person's junk is another person's treasure. So that part, we always benefit if we have policy that helps guide staff. So I'm not unsupportive of that. And I still do believe, though, that we should seek, make sure that we're going down the right path, that this it's not going to be a bad thing to have a policy, but we should make sure that it is an actual requirement, because why waste your time? Okay, now, sorry, one last thing and then I'm done.
Okay,
Maybe.
maybe.
The barking dogs and dogs at large, are they two different animals? Because you want a barking log for noise, but if the person hasn't been able to secure the dog because they're now on their property or the dog is at large, what do you require for that? So an address of where the dog lives, photo evidence that they were at large. Is that part of the same kind of policy? I know that you're also talking about fireworks, which is a nightmare for the fire department, so.
Yes, so they are two different things. With the dogs at large, at present, we don't require photo or any evidence of the dog being at large, as long as the person has the dog contained and they essentially confirm they don't own the dog and it turned up at their location. However, they found it wandering on the road, it came into the yard, they got a leash on it, then that is at this point in time sufficient enough that we will go and collect the dog. More dogs that get registered and have tags, it will make it easier for us because the address of the owner, tag number, all the information will be collected. And then barking dogs is the only one, including noise, where it's not in policy that we require it, but I have been issuing barking and noise logs to residents for these complaints and getting them to fill them out right now, just to help with evidence gathering for tickets and fines and things like that.
Okay, Martin, you're next, and then I see Monica has her hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Yeah, I love the idea of, actually having a policy where, there's some of the responsibility is on the complainant to say, this is happening. So I like that part, and I like the idea of the policies. Just the one question I have, and you might not be able to answer it. And in the cost recovery policy, the first paragraph, it says at the end, it says to seek these costs through cost recovery mechanisms available through the Municipal Act, such as through recovery on the tax roll. Are there any other ways we can do that? Or is the tax roll the easiest and the most expeditious, or whatever that word is?
Maybe I'll take that one, Your Worship, through you, the counselor. Tax roll is probably the most efficient and expeditious, because seeking it through the courts is not always guaranteed, as Hannah has explained, and it may not necessarily cover our legal costs. It may be, correct me if I'm wrong, Hannah, it may just be that the court costs, so the costs related to the province of Ontario, the justice running that particular trial might be all that's given, right? So this is probably the most expeditious way.
Okay.
Yep.
Monica, and then I have Joan.
Thank
And
you.
then
Perfect. Thank you, Chair. So yes, I do appreciate the work that's been put into the report and efforts to create a clear enforcement policy. Ensuring that we're fiscally responsible by recovering legal costs is important, but we do also need to ensure that fairness of property owners, and particularly those who may be struggling financially, are addressed. Just in addition to that, requiring evidence for barking dogs and fireworks complaints is practical, but we have to ensure a process that remains accessible and does not deter residents from reporting legitimate concerns. And just with vexatious complaints, policies do make sense for efficiency, but I'd like to ensure that we have appropriate safeguards in place so that real ongoing issues are still properly investigated. So with that being said, just with regards to cost recovery for bylaw enforcement, I'm always looking at the legal aspect of things. So one, has there been a review of legal risks and potential challenges in charging residents for enforcement services? And is there a minimum threshold for cost recovery to be determined? just one little thing to throw in there, is this cost recovery based on if someone is found guilty? So that's one, if they're guilty, then this would take place, because what if they're found innocent? Is there, am I missing something there? Like, then they won't have to pay anything. This is only if someone's found guilty. And then also, is there any legal risks on the part of a town for putting something like this in place?
Maybe I'll take that one again. Through you, your worship, to Councillor Singsource. The suggestion that we've made in the policy or in the report is that we would only seek recovery of the municipality's costs if we were successful in pursuing the enforcement action. So if it goes to court and the outcome is in the township's favor, then that would be when we would seek recovery of all of our legal and administrative costs. I just want to be clear, though, we're not suggesting that enforcement be a cost recovery program, meaning that, you know, someone wants to file a complaint, they have to pay to do so. That's not suggested at all. But it really is indicative on whether or not the action itself is successful. Because obviously, if we were not successful, to charge that back would actually expose us to potential risk. So we wouldn't want to do that. I'm not sure if I answered all of your question, Councillor Singsource, but hopefully that got most of it.
Thank you, Ken. Just to follow up, is there a threshold of cost recovery that will be determined? Essentially, will there be a minimum case cost that would need to be met?
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Singsource, I think part of what we want to do in order to give us the most flexibility is look at a level of discretion to the chief building official to make that call. So I think it would depend on the matter itself and how far it went. You know, if we were talking about an enforcement case that was in the courts for years, then that would probably be a significant amount of money that the township would have to expend. We would look to a significant cost recovery, but each situation will be on its own merits. So I don't know if that really gives you a level of comfort, but I think we would have to approach it that way just because each situation will be different.
Chair, just one more follow-up to that.
One more. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Ken. No, obviously with everything new, there will be little things that need to be massaged through. I know we talked about Line Fences Act before. I do think that if there was a research that was done to find out where it's mostly happening, how much it would cost, and if there was any way to help get fences up, because it is very expensive, but not like $10,000s of dollars, but there's a way to do it. This will help to mitigate a lot of these costs that are looking like they might start blooming. And there's a lot of reports all the time. Nothing new to everyone here, especially in the urban area. So just wanted to mention that could be a real proactive measure. Is there a standardized process for residents to submit evidence to ensure fairness?
So right now with the evidence, all the evidence comes to me. They can either email it to me or they can bring it into the township if it's on a USB or something like that and give it to me that way. And then I add it to the file. There's a video as part of the evidence, then that gets added into a file for that property and it's kept there until such time as the case is resolved or they pay the fine or whatever the case is. And I also just want to clarify too with the tax roll, the cost can only be added onto the tax roll if it's the property owners who are being charged. So if it's in the case of a tenant, for example, a dog barking or a dog at large, and the tenant is the one getting the fine, not the property owner, then it is the tenant where the costs ultimately go back to, and then we cannot put them on the tax roll because it's the tenant who owns the dog, for example, is the one who is getting the fine.
Right.
Just to clarify.
Very good. Thank you, Hannah. Joan, you had a question.
More like a comment and a question. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I am in support of the strategic priorities and also your report on the conduct and information an operation service delivery for to meet the growing needs of the community, because the community is really growing. But on page 3, staff recommended council direct if the complaints are vexatious. It's a very tricky situation. I smile when you came and said it's tricky. It's a very tricky situation to decipher vexatious from valid sometimes. How we will know the difference, because I've seen instances and heard true story of continuous dogs off the leash and dogs running around, but as soon as you come, they're gone, or they lock them up and something like that. And I've witnessed illegal fireworks where they stop as soon as you pull up, because I've gone to somebody's house like 3 times myself just to tell them to shut up or shut it off. And when I left, they started again, and I drove back there. And they start as soon as you leave. So it's a really tricky situation, and I've seen it all the time. So I know you've put a lot of effort into this, but it's gonna be a give and take as to how we get some of these people. And also you mentioned that a lot of them are tenants. And I remember once we couldn't pass this particular house because the dog kept running out on people. But as soon as you get there, the dogs are locked up. So yeah, but thank you.
Thank you, Joan.
Thank you.
Jason, then Bart.
Just so the public and me and so if you have a dog barking complaint, you go out there, the dog's barking right in front of you, do you issue them a fine right then?
I don't, because if the dog is barking right in front of me, and I've seen this happen before when it's been challenged in courts, the argument is that a dog will bark when you're standing there in front of them and they can see you. So that's not reasonable in the eyes of the court. The only way that it's seen as reasonable, from what I've seen in my experience with barking dogs, is the complainant has to get the evidence with the dog not being able to see them, because that way the court then views it as the dog can't see them, so they don't have a reason to bark when the complainant is standing right there.
Jason.
Well, I guess so, not to, I don't know what go at you is, but like, so what's the sense of going out then? I don't understand. And then we come to the barking dogs and the fireworks. You're putting it on the onus of the complaintee to get all the evidence and to control the dog, paying a company at night. So why would they bother going out unless, why don't you just wait to get the evidence in the morning? I don't get it. We're like, if you're not going to give them a fine right then, I'm going to let my dog keep barking. Why are you putting the onus on the complainant if there is an actual, that they have to get the evidence? We're providing a service, so we should be charging for that service. I'm just not understanding it, I guess. I don't know if that's you, Ken, or okay.
Well, I was going to jump in. So through you to the counselor. First and foremost, I'm not aware of any municipality that charges residents to file a bylaw complaint. So that is a service that is part of the duties that a municipality has to provide. You're obligated under your Ontario law to enforce your canine bylaw. And we don't charge for that service. I'm not aware of any that do that. That said, it's important to understand that when it comes to enforcement of bylaws, particularly related to property standards, canine, things like that, we don't jump to fines right away. There are processes that we have to do in order to satisfy the courts and the case law that's being established. And generally, I don't think we want to, in average situations, jump to fines right away. You could correct the issue by a simple warning, for instance. So, getting back to Councillor John's concern about vexatious cases, I mean, I can think of an instance where if a if a complainant calls and says this property is unsightly, and we go out and we see that it is, that's obvious, and we initiate a process. But then if we are getting complaints afterwards, we're not seeing anything, we may go back to that complainant and say, well, then provide us proof. This is now the 5th time you've called. We've gone out. We're not seeing anything. What are you seeing that we're not? And then that's where some discretion would be applied in terms of now it's getting a bit vexatious and our resources are being used and we're not seeing anything. But in terms of evidence gathering, laying a charge doesn't, the court system in a simple tone is innocent until proven guilty. So if we are trying to enforce our bylaw, if we're going to lay a charge, we need evidence to prove it. And putting the onus back on the complainant in some cases, because the situation can occur and then cease to exist in terms of an evidence gathering opportunity, really is what municipalities are doing now, because it can be, as Councillor John says, the fireworks are happening, now they're done and nobody gets there in time. Putting the onus on the complainants and making sure that people understand that, these are very time sensitive matters, and that to help us be able to actually enforce and get this evidence this is a struggle that's not our own. It's one that's happening in every municipality. And this is where municipalities are moving to.
So that, okay, I get that. So then why have an after hours if the onus is on the complainant? I'll take pictures I'll grab the dog or take pictures of the fireworks. Why are we paying this company in the afternoon if they come out and it's not happening? So we've just paid them for nothing, which talked to Jim last week. The number we had for the after enforcement hours didn't even work. And we're paying this company $15,000 a year, but it's on the onus of the resident to collect the evidence. Like, I don't get that.
So,
Yeah.
So through your worship, the contract that's being done for canine enforcement isn't just related to complaints about barking dogs. It's about everything related to the entire canine bylaw. So it's dogs at large, it's inspections of kennels. It's a lot more than just this one issue. And really, it's up to a complainant to decide when they want to lodge a complaint. What we're suggesting is that, given the direction that most municipalities are taking, we want to give them a heads up of what they need to do in order to put the complaint forward so that we are successful. But that still would involve an officer going out and dealing with the matter regardless.
Okay, I have a couple more people on the line to talk here, but I want to bring us back. Staff recommendation is to develop a policy to address these. We don't necessarily need to create the policy today or debate it for that matter. But I mean, there's a lot of concerns here, obviously, a lot more questions, but anyway, that's what's being asked of us today. Barb, you're next.
Thank you. And back to you, Hannah. 2 things. You mentioned about barking dog. Of course, you want your dog to bark if there's a stranger on the property, and a dog may bark to be let in from having been let outside. It's when the dog is left all day and barking incessantly, just does not stop. It's not barking for purpose, it's barking, and it could be recorded and you could have an address without the dog seeing you. I think that's the distinguishing feature, is that dogs bark for a reason, and their reason might be is they don't want to be left outside for 8 hours. But so to that, I want to get back to the putting charges or cost on a tax roll. If it's not, so this is where the legal opinion, so when you bring the policy back, where a legal opinion, I think we need to make sure is, because if we go to court and we we have a policy and it says we can charge costs to the tax roll, they could appeal it to court. We're back in court because the courts haven't awarded the cost. So this is where because of experience, we've been down that road where, we get costs awarded by the court for a property standard or building bylaw enforcement. And, you know, if they don't pay, we can go in and clean it. If they don't clean it up, we can go in and we have that mechanism. The court has awarded it. But if we're just charging the tax roll and it hasn't actually been awarded by the court, can they appeal it? And that's the question I'd like clarified from a legal perspective, because we don't want to end up back in court just to appeal the cost. Kind of wasted effort. So that would be my only comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Monica, I see your hand up. Go ahead, please. No? Okay. Any further questions? I'll call the question. Sorry, Jim, go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, good people. So with doing some research just recently about the tax policy, and it refers to the Municipal Act and being able to go to the tax roll for property standards, utility payments. So there is a process that is outlined in the Municipal Act that supports us.
Very good. Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Ken. Next is Public Works Department. Report regarding road management study, RFP. There's a recommendation there. Would someone care to move it, please? Barb, seconded by Martin. Thank you. John, welcome.
Thank you. So yeah, this is just the road management study that we typically do every 5 years. It basically they develop a 10-year plan for the maintenance and fixing of our roads. So we put it out to tender, and the only company that bid was Triton Engineering at a cost of $27,500 plus HST. Triton did the road management study for us in 2019, and the cost at that time was $25,000.
Very good. Thank you, John. Questions, discussion? Jason.
Well, I guess I had the question 5 years ago too. How did you say it, John? It's a plan. Like,
Yeah, so they kind of come up with like a 10-year
yeah.
based on the condition of the road.
So I guess I said it the last time too, you know, you guys are our road experts. I $27,000, you guys know which roads need fixed better than this Triton. Maybe they know how that this bridge, but we all, I don't know. It just seems like a lot of money. I would hope that you guys that, you know, are the roads guys should, just seems like a lot of money to me to have a plan, and you guys know better than they do, I would say, but anyway.
So John.
So this also ties in with the asset management plan and that stuff as well. So, and helps with provincial funding.
Monica, please.
Hi, thank you. Just for you, Chair, to John, just a quick question with regards to the lack of competitive bidding. So I do see that, well, my understanding is that Triton was the only bidder. So just wondering if the price compares to similar studies in neighboring municipalities. Essentially, are we getting a good cost amount, or have you been able to see if we're on the market of how much we should be getting charged?
John.
Through you. Can't answer that, but I can ask around and see what other neighboring municipalities have paid for it.
As you mentioned earlier, though, John, the cost, was it 5 years ago, was 25,000.
Yeah.
This is a $2,500 increase. So it's, I would say, in the ballpark. Jim and then Barb.
Hey, John. So off the last study of 2019, of the recommendations, how many were followed?
Quite a few of them actually. So the Lakes of Side Road 75 and 26. 11. A lot of those roads were.
And the other question, so it has to be done, this report for funding and that through the provincial government. Is it have to be done by an outside source?
I believe it has to be done by an engineering firm. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. Barb.
Thank you. And basically answered, or my comment is that the roads need study doesn't include the bridges, right? And that they are engineers where we may not have engineers, road engineers on staff. So, and the other part of that was, you know, a 10% increase over 6 years probably is within reason. There aren't too many Triton engineering firms out there. So, yeah, I think that that it gives us a plan, and it doesn't necessarily mean that the road they're recommending today, because I mean, if you look at the value of bridges and roads, we'd never get there with, but we need to monitor that every year, and that they do that analysis, correct?
Yeah, so they come up with a plan, but it's a fluid plan that if we find a road, like they have recommendations of what order they should be done in, but if we find that 3 years down the road, road number 6 needs to get put ahead of road number 4 because it's deteriorating faster, then we still do that.
Jim?
Yeah, so the roads management study takes into consideration that third party looking at it. They do have some training involved for dealing with pavement condition index, the roads condition assessment. And they're actually driving these roads, right? They're not doing it from a desktop. It's actually driving every road. We just have confirmed as well, and this is going to be brought into the budget discussion going forward, that through development charges, the roads management study and the bridge OSM report study can be 50% funded through DCs. So we will be chiseling that down the next version at
Right on.
round 3.
Good news. Jason, and then
So
Martin.
just to clarify, under the asset management plan, if we did not do these types of studies, you will not get no funding, period? Because that's what I just heard, that if we don't do this, we won't get any funding. So I just,
Jim?
It supports the background. I wouldn't say you're not necessarily guaranteed you're not getting funding for not having a roads management study. The bridge OSM reports, they are mandated. We have to have them every 2 years. And that's why we split them in half and do half each year. But they are mandated to be completed.
no, and I get the bridges. I just, if it's not something where you're not going to get the funding, John and you and the guys driving the graders, they know those roads better than any Triton engineer that's going to come up and drive them, as far as I'm concerned. So
Was there any, Martin, you had your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, just might be a silly question. You said it's a 10-year plan, right? So is it mandated every 5 years, even though it's a 10-year plan? Because you just said yourself, if this road in 3 years of the 10-year plan has to be bumped up for this road, like everything's not written in stone in the study. So why isn't there, by that, the next one should be 2029?
Yeah, so they do that, but just because we do it every 5 years because they do change and fluctuate. And if we do change,
Okay.
so it just helps us with our capital budget forecasting for the 10 year as well.
Thank you, John. And I think
Thank you.
that's where the real benefit of the study is. It allows us to budget on a consistent basis. Jim?
Yeah, and they do take into consideration our current 10-year capital forecast as well as looking. So, you know, we've carried in that, you know, eventually we are going to pave some of these roads that get into that list, but we don't necessarily do it at that point in time because we're dealing with having to rehab a lot of pavement as opposed to putting new pavement down sometimes in areas. So it fits together.
Okay. Not seeing any more questions. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Thank you, John. Bylaws and motions. We have one bylaw there to appoint the deputy division register and a deputy issuer of marriage licenses. Definitely not a job for me. Lindsay. Oh, I need a mover and seconder, please. Monica and Joan. Thank you. Lindsay.
Through you, Mayor Milne. This is a bylaw to appoint Sheila. She is our admin and finance customer service person, so she can issue marriage licenses and help enhance at the front counter for those services.
Excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions? Martin?
Just curious, how many marriages does the township do every year? Like, is it
Do
quite
we
a bit?
perform or do we issue marriage licenses?
Or issue and, yeah. And
I'd have to
perform.
ask Holly. how many
Yeah.
We issue, but in the past, we've done, I think we did maybe 4 or 5 marriages last year. Actually like solemnizing the marriage and performing it, but we probably do 20 to 30 licenses. Yeah.
And we're not liable for any of them. You pays your bucks, you takes your chances. Okay, any other questions, discussion?
Just a quick question. Sorry.
Go ahead, Monica.
Thank you. Just a quick question through you, Chair. Would the township ever look at doing civil ceremonies?
Yeah, so through you to Councillor Singh Soares, that's what we're talking about, the marriage solemnization. Those are the civil ceremonies that we perform either in chambers, we've done them in the meeting room, or we'll go to a location that that they request. So yeah, we do perform those services. Yeah.
Oh, great. So great to hear that you may actually go on site.
Yep.
So-
Yep.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
So
there's
great.
3 of us at the township right now, potentially a 4th, that can solemnize marriages right now. Yeah.
I think it's wonderful. Every
good.
township, yeah, should have one.
Barb?
And those are recovered through our fees and charges bylaw.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, there's it's a bit more if it's during a weekend or yeah, after hours, and there's the mileage charge, but it's cost recovered.
Very good. Your hand's still up, Monica? No, you're good? Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you, Lindsay. No motion. Is there a notice of motion? I guess there is none on the agenda. I don't see any here. Consent items, regular business. There are 5 or 6 there. Oh, there's like 8. Anybody want any of those removed for further discussion? Joan? Okay. I'll need a mover and seconder to receive those items. Barb and Jim, thank you. Someone wish to comment on any of those items? Barb, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple. I'll do one, and this is through you to the clerk about the Simply Voting awarding that contract. Not unsupportive of the well, it's not a recommendation because we gave you direction to find someone, but can you please let us know if they provide? I know that they ranked highest, so you had a ranking system. Do they provide the data that shows number of votes cast by candidate by area? Because I think it might be of value going down the road with the growth in Dundalk, and whether or not at any point in time a future council wants to look at ward system. But it also helps in evaluating the candidate on, it kind of lends itself to where people are voting as well.
Sure, through you, Mayor Milne. We are looking into that. I'm not sure if it'll be a Simply Voting thing. It might be more through the voters list, which would be through DataFix, VoterView. But we are looking into that. The way that the voters lists are changing over with Elections Ontario, I'm not optimistic we'll be able to, but we're working on getting an answer on that.
Go ahead.
And who were the other the people who responded, companies that responded?
We had, sorry, I had it up. Sorry, I had it up. Hang on. So there was Simply Voting, Electio, if I pronounced that right, Sequent Tech, and Voats. Sequent Tech, I believe, changed their name. They were a vendor last year, I believe, but yeah, those were the 4 that submitted bids.
Thank you, Lindsay. Joan, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, not a question, just a comment.
Okay.
Item number 12.1.2 CL 2025-008, modern marriage license modernization. I am proud that the Township of Southgate was selected to participate in the, what they call it, MLM project, which definitely simplified the marriage license application process. And that is also recognized that some resident may not have internet access and staff will still accept and process paper application. Well done, staff. That is truly operational excellence, because I heard that Gray Island is just going to be online only.
Oh,
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not quite
Yeah.
sure if they're just
Okay.
online only.
Yeah.
I can
So-
see about that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
thank you.
Holly's been working towards putting that in place. So it's great now that we can do that going forward. I'm sure we will likely see an increase in the amount that we issue just because it's more accessible. But
Yes,
as you
yes.
say, yeah, we will still be providing the paper service
Very
for
good.
people.
Thank you.
Barb.
The next item that I wanted to speak to was 12.1.3 through you to Kayla. Thank you for the summary of what we have in our community funds, the Eco Park Royalty Fund and the Southgate Solar Fund. You did note that it's not the the Wellington Arena, but that is the Community Foundation Grey Bruce Fund, 15,000 from each. Can you tell off the top of your head, when does that conclude? Like, I think we have a 5-year contribution and we might have 1 or 2 contributions left.
Yes, thank you, through the mayor. Yes, there was a friendly amendment on the report. The report that's currently on the agenda does have the Community Foundation Grey Bruce on it, just to update you on that. And then the Community Foundation Grey Bruce, with the help of Holly, we did track it down, and this will be our last year of the contribution to that we committed to.
Just a follow up to that.
Sure.
So to that, are we, because it's on our council agenda, we can consider this during our budget deliberations this afternoon? Thank you.
Okay. Martin,
Yeah, that was my.
Microphone?
I printed it off, so-
microphone,
Oh,
please.
Yeah, I printed that off too about the funding and the balances, which was kind of neat to see. So I was going to bring it up in budget too, but it was good to know. The other one about this is to Lindsay, with the RFP, and you had 4 applicants. Were they different? Were they different items that you looked at than a usual RFP because it's part of the Elections Act? Like, what did you base? Why did they get the highest? Like customer service, better technology?
Yeah, what really stood out with Simply Voting for us was that they have worked with municipalities in our area and smaller rural municipalities for quite a few election cycles now. Security is a big thing we're looking at, but yeah, we had direct conversations too with members of our clerk's team in Grey County that have worked directly with Simply, and experience of the company is a big factor as well.
Sure.
And the other item that I wanted to bring up, and I see that our fire chief is online, 12.1.4, the year-end report. Just, it kind of relates to our budget deliberations again. So if this is not for discussion here, but thank you, Chief Derek. I'm thinking that because of your concerns about automatic and mutual aid, and other municipalities are growing, the equipment may not always be available. This is probably for us to discuss the ladder truck and the fire bay expansion. And that might be budget or it might be in a future staff report, but it goes to the DCs, and I know that the ladder truck and the fire bay would be completely covered by DCs, correct? Because it's growth.
I think that's more budget talk. I can speak to on this report about relying on other neighboring municipalities with automatic aid. The report does say that one of our automatic aids for Shelburne, we had to switch to mutual aid due to the fact that they were tied up in Orangeville with something. So that's directly to this report. As for the budgeting and DCs, I would think that's more budget talk this afternoon than year-end report. Like,
Thank you.
that's my thoughts.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? On any of these reports, Martin?
Just saying, Derek, I read the report, good report, and congrats on being the partner with the Red Cross for all that training that you do. That was a good thing to see, so.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Oh, Joan, go ahead.
Just briefly again on the librarian report, just how great the library is doing in operation services and all the new things that we've brought in, thanks to Friends of the Library and also to the Community Fund for all the stuff that we have been doing and bringing in, and the numbers are just going up every day. So great report again. Thanks.
Thank you, Joan. Go ahead.
And this one is through you to our John Watson. With regard to the department update, 12.1.6, how did the snow pushing back to the curbs and removal, and where are we in that process? I know that we're getting the rain now and we're expecting more snow, but I just want to thank staff for the effort that they've put out there in an incredible winter, and the responsiveness to, that we didn't plan on having to call in a contractor. Staff took that as, it's a needed in order to keep the roads passable. Maybe you'd like to elaborate on that process and just how things are going. I think the staff have responded really exceptionally well in an exceptional winter.
Thank you. So we completed snow blowing operations last Friday, and the final bill came in. It was just north of 67,000, but any overages will be covered out of the reserve for that. So, and as you said about the rain and stuff, we got the snowbanks back and catch basins are opened up, so that'll mitigate flooding as well. So,
thank you, John.
I did notice one on Victoria Street right around Elm. The water was out to the center. Maybe it's fixed now.
okay, yeah, it might have chewed its way through too. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? I think we've covered pretty near every one of them now. Okay. All those in favor? That is carried. Consent items under correspondence. Is there any of those that need to be removed? Monica, do you want to remove any of these for further direction?
No, not direction, just comment for 12.
All right, I'll just come to you in a second then. I need a mover to receive these. Martin, thank you. Seconded by Joan. Go ahead, Monica, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just with regards to report 12.2.1. As a counselor and board appointee for the Grey Bruce OPP, just with regards to the report, I do appreciate the ongoing efforts of the Grey Bruce OPP in keeping our community safe. While property crimes have decreased, and I'm taking this from the report, the 12% rise in violent crimes, the 771 cases in 2024 versus 687 in 2023, and the increase in drug-related offenses highlight the need for continued proactive enforcement and community support services. It's great to also see that initiatives like the Youth in Policing YIPI program, engaging at-risk youth and building trust, is happening. And additionally, Crime Stoppers received 703 tips in 2024, showing that residents are playing an active role in crime prevention. On the roads, 1,407 motor vehicle collisions were reported, reinforcing the importance of ongoing traffic enforcement and education, which I'm sure many of us have already witnessed with the past several months. Public safety requires collaboration, trust, and strong community engagement. So I do commend the dedication of our officers and remain committed to supporting policies that enhance safety, accountability, and crime prevention across Southgate and the entire region. I just thought to offer those details for those that may be asking, and hopefully we'll have more information coming soon.
Thank you. Barb?
Thank you. And through you to Councillor Singh Soars, with regard to 12.2.1. At one of our last meetings, you mentioned that you would be inaugurated to the board on February 28th, but I understand that didn't happen. Do we have a new date? And when and where is it?
Yes, so that's information that, because things are sometimes changing, as we just saw for February, that's something I can look into, just making sure the details are now firm and then provide that. I don't have the information concrete at this moment.
Does Holly have any update, perhaps?
I believe it's March 24th, but we can confirm.
Okay.
Please. Thank you.
That'd be great.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. I'll call the question. All those in favor? That is carried. We don't have any resolutions from other municipalities. We don't have a closed session. County report. Do you have anything to report, Barb? Okay.
I just wanted to highlight that the Gather campaign that the county is going through launched earlier in the month and is a celebration of local food and producers. Starting with the first culinary ambassador is celebrity chef Roger Mooking. The videos can be viewed at www.gatheringrade.ca. It's pretty neat, and there's a couple of restaurants that I've even checked off as, I've got to eat there, got to try that. We're also partnering with the municipality of Grey Highlands, or we're working with the municipality of Grey Highlands to acquire land in Feversham for a new paramedic services base. That will help streamline and hopefully, or the plan is to expedite the service, elevate the service and provide a better response time. And the council received an update on the progress of local licensed childcare growth plan. At the year end of 2024, more than 2,000 children are under the age of 6 remain on a wait list. And while some of that can be resolved with additional spaces, we can't expand those spaces due to lack of funding.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on any of the county activities? You still have your hand up, Monica? Do you have a question or you're good? You're good? Okay. All right. Not seeing any further. Confirming bylaw. Oh, Lindsay, Madam Clerk.
Just the inaugural meeting for the Grey Bruce OPP is Tuesday, March 25th at Grey Roots Museum in Owen Sound from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for that, Lindsay. Okay, confirming the bylaw. I need someone to move that, please. Members privilege. I did so. My apologies. I was so excited to see the end of the meeting that I missed that. Does anybody have one? Anything to add? Joan?
I could just add to it the close of Black History Month. I wasn't really going to speak on it, but because you left it off, I did a work the room. Well, we had a blast for the entire month, so many things that we did, and so the awareness that we brought to the township, not just Southgate, but Southgate and beyond. And we're very happy to see it wrapped up. I need to sleep.
Thank you, Joan. And I did attend a couple of the events over the course of the month, and I thank JCI for their work in the community to provide those events. Monica, you have something for our members' privilege? Go ahead, please.
Yes, so just wanted to wish everyone a happy International Women's Day that will be coming on Saturday. So just to everyone, men and women, just celebrating all people into leadership, and this one highlighting women. And I just wish the best to Councillor John and Deputy Mayor DeBreen, fellow women in leadership, continue to soar. And thank you to the men who support women and everyone. And with that being said, also the coldest night of the year was a very successful initiative that ran through Ontario and wide. And it was really great in Bruce Grey, Owen Sound and beyond. And I was part of different locations, and the spirit was the same all the way across. And so just want to wish everybody who participated, walked, volunteered, donated, shared. It was really, really great. The United Way of Bruce Grey are phenomenal at what they do. Safe and Sound Grey Bruce, and so many I can mention. So just wanted to wish everyone that, and a very happy March to everyone. Great things coming this month for the town and for everyone. So thank you so much for allowing me to share.
Thank you, Monica. Okay. No other items? Motion to do the confirming bylaw. Jim and Barb, all those in favor? That is carried. We have one more bylaw to adjourn. Jim, second by Joan. All those in favor? We stand adjourned. I remind everybody that the budget meeting will commence at 1 p.m. So we'll see you